Psalms 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork.
This week in Watercolor Moments, we come to a verse that says, the heavens declare the glory of God. And I've been thinking about what that really means. Because when I look up at the sky, especially at night, it's really hard to take it all in. It feels endless. No matter how much you look, you can only really see a bit of it at a time. You can't take in the whole thing at once. And that got me thinking about how we come to know God in a similar way. Not all at once, but little by little over time. And yet, even though we can't take it all in, the sky feels like it's covering everything. And maybe that's part of what it's meant to remind us of, that God is big enough to cover everything in our lives, even the parts that feel heavy. Maybe especially the parts that feel heavy. And for me, I find that brings me a lot of comfort and a lot of hope. I'm really excited to share this painting with you. Grab your supplies and let's get started.
Hello there, painting friends. I am going to go ahead and get warmed up on my scripture page. And a quick reminder, especially if you're new. If you're not new, you're probably really tired of hearing this, which is you can also grab the printable. It comes in an email, so you have to just sign up for that. It's free, obviously. The link is in the description below, and that email will actually give you the printable. So if you are interested in that because you don't have time to write out the scripture ahead of time, you can grab that. I just want people to know that it's a thing. It's an option. So I am just painting with water, and then I'm dropping in my color. So I've got quite a light color going on here because I want to be able to see my words below. And if I get a big blob of color that I don't want, I'll just go ahead and add some more water. It's that simple. You can do it. You might be asking, how do you know when to put what colors where? I don't. I just kind of add some color and continue on my way. So this project is going to require that you tape off your paper ahead of time, which is that blue painter's tape. Because we are going to be using a lot of water and a lot of paint, and it will just keep things looking nice and neat. So there's that. And we are also going to be using some salt for some awesome texture in the background, all of that beautiful, beautiful texture. It's just from regular old table salt. Now, if you have some of that coarse salt, you can do that and it will give you a similar but different texture. So you can totally experiment with your size of salt. I keep accidentally grabbing into my orange there. So just trying to clean that up. All right, something else that you don't have to, but you could use today is a little bit of bleed proof white. This is to do the splatters, the star splatters there. If you don't have this, you could also use a white gel pen after, so obviously you won't be able to splatter, but you could put in some very precisely placed stars. Maybe you make a specific constellation. That might be kind of fun. So any way that you want to do it, that's the right way. Okay. So I'm just coming in here adding a little bit more color just for funsies. Yeah, that feels pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and then we will get started with a quick little drawing. Okay, so for this painting, we are creating it from what's called a worm's eye view. So you know a bird's eye view is like over the top, right? Up high. A worm's eye view is exactly what it sounds like, down on the ground looking up. And I wanted to do it from this angle because I really wanted to capture that feeling of awe and beauty when you're looking up at a night sky and just the vastness and the glory of all of that. So with that being said, I want to just do a really, really quick lesson on what this means. So if you've done perspective drawing before, maybe you already know how to do this. But if you look at these trees, they're all basically pointing to a spot on the page. Now, I didn't draw it out ahead of time. If I wanted to be more precise, I would. For this one, I will. But let me just show you what this looks like. So let's say that we want all of the trees, let's say our focal point or our vanishing point rather is the middle of the paper. That means any tree that I draw is going to come from whatever corner it's at, will point down to this line here, okay? So let's say I had one like right next to that, it would come over here, or let's say over here, okay? I think you get the picture, right? So any tree that you draw, now you can pick a different point. You could have it starting over here, and that would give you like a different view. They're all going to point to basically, well, to that same spot, wherever you pick, okay, as your vanishing point. Something else that I want you to notice, which we'll get to more when we are doing the trees, but this is probably a good example. So if you're looking straight up, because you're on the ground, then the line for your tree is going to kind of taper up. See how it's wider on the bottom and then tapers up. So that's another quick thing to note on how to make it look, you know, a little bit more worm's eye view-ish. Now, if you want, you can totally draw in your lines for where you want your trees to go right now. And since we're filling them in black, you can leave your pencil lines like pretty dark. If you want to grab a ruler to be like really precise with this, you can, but I am just going to eyeball it because look, that's just how I roll. That's just how I do it. I'm not going to have mine come all the way, like I'm not drawing my line all the way up to this dot. I just wanted to show you that it, you know, would connect to that spot. And something else I'm going to do right now, I'm going to just erase some of these lines so that they're not all the same height, because remember, when we have a variety of lengths or heights, it really can create something that feels interesting to look at. So I'm just coming over here and I'm just erasing a few lines here and there. Maybe I'll keep these, well, let's see. I'm making decisions here. I'm gonna erase this one. I think I'll do it more at this angle just cause. And I feel like I've got quite a few lines here. And well, I'll just leave it. Why not? I'll leave that, and I'm going to erase that dot. And I'm planning, because this tree is going to come out there. Kind of don't want things touching too hard. I have some over here. Okay, this is good enough. This will work. This is all the info that we need to begin our painting. Again, as you're painting, if you lose the lines, it's okay. That's, like I said, this one, I didn't draw a dot and then like plan out my lines. I kind of just drew them in the general direction of like one point. So if it's not exact, it's fine. Now I do want to make sure that I'm using a big brush for this a bit. So that I can cover my area quickly. And something else I want to just show you, it's totally up to you. I added more of this purpley pink kind of in the center area and left the outside edges a little bit more blue. I'm going to do that again. Also going to prep my paints with a little water bottle and just spray them. All right, we're literally just going to go for it. Okay, I really love this pink, and there's this purple. I like this too. I totally got color in that spot, but I should have cleaned my palette first, or cleaned my brush first before picking it up, but I did not do that. All right, so this is where that taping of the paper really comes in handy, because we're really going to get messy here, okay? So notice how my strokes are just pretty scribbly, and I want to move kind of fast, okay? Because I want things to just blend into each other. I can grab some water, and then I can pop in some paint, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this blue here, start popping it around the outside edge. Now, quick, just FYI, this painting has 2 layers. So this first layer that we're doing, it's going to look not as dark as a night sky. And that's okay, because we're not done. We're not done with it, okay? And I'll just, again, I'm just being real scribbly. If I want to add more pink, yes, I do. I'm going to just grab it and pop it in while my paint is wet. See, while my paint is wet is when my paint has the opportunity to kind of flow and blend into other areas, right? And so that is what I'm doing. And of course, feel free if you want to bring some of that purpley color or pink color, or you can do this in like blues and greens. That will look pretty too. You can add some on the edges too. I'm just kind of concentrating, I am concentrating my color more in the center, that pink purple color, but you can do it however you want. Something else that's kind of fun, I didn't do it on this one, but you can, is if while it's wet, you can kind of like tip it and tilt it and let things just kind of move however. That's fun. Because again, when we get into a state of playfulness, we're not worried about making mistakes, it really is the best way of creating. I really do think that. We're not hard on ourselves, you know? We're just like, wonder what would happen if I did that. A little bit of curiosity in creating, I think, is actually quite important. Okay. I'm just trying not to grab that orange that's right next to that blue, but it's just happening. All right. Now, if you've got any really big puddles, I have a few here, but I'm okay with it. I want to show you what to do though. If you do have big puddles, you just grab your brush and you just use it as like a little sponge, pick up that paint, wipe it on your paper towel, just like that, okay? I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick dry. Now that this is all dry, I want to mix up a darker color that I'm going to put over the top of this. You can kind of think of this as like layering colored panes of glass. So I want it to be kind of like a navy color. If you have one on your palette, you can just use that. You can make this color by grabbing your blue and some brown. You can grab your blue and some Payne's gray. I'm going to do the Payne's gray this time. Also, if you want it to skew more purple or pink or something else, you can totally do that. And I'm trying to make a decent amount because I need to cover the whole page with that color. So I want you to just notice I got like a puddle going on here, and that's what I'm going for. So I've got that blue, I'm cleaning my brush. Then I will grab some of this Payne's gray. I don't want it to be so dark that my tree silhouettes won't show up. So that's why I'm grabbing the Payne's gray versus like grabbing black or something. Okay. I'll probably have to make more paint, but this is a really good start. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I have my salt ready. I'm just going to start up in a corner. I want you to notice that this paint is still watery, so we don't want it like super, super thick. Otherwise, it won't stay wet long enough for the salt to work. So while it's wet, I'm just sprinkling in salt. Okay. And I'm going to leave it alone. Once I've added the salt, it's time to move on. We're done with that. Okay. And then just go down to the next section. Something else that's helpful is I'm not really spending a long time scrubbing my brush back and forth, because what happens is I'm activating the paint underneath, and I don't want to activate it a lot because I'm basically just trying to create another layer so that we can see that color behind it. But now we definitely have more of a night sky feel, which I'm sure you can see. Now, of course, if you like your sky to be lighter, you don't have to do this step. The tricky part is if you try to add some white for the stars without a second layer, so it's not very dark, then you're not going to be able to see the white against that color, which is another reason for doing it this way. Now, you might be freaking out because you can't see your pencil lines anymore. It's okay. We can just make it up as we go. It will be all right. Okay. I know some of you that might really stress you out. You can do it. I believe in you. Okay. I'm like so close, and I'm also running out of paint. Just trying real hard to just, aha. I got it. All right. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. Just like that. And maybe a little bit more. If you put the salt down and nothing really seems to be happening, okay, then your paper is already dry. So that's why we're just doing a section at a time instead of trying to paint the whole thing and adding the salt. That way, we know that the paint will still be wet. You can see some of this really cool texture, especially, up at the top, it's starting to dry. Let me just hold this up a little bit closer. So like right up in there. Isn't that fun? All right. Okay, now what I've got to do is I've actually got to dry this. We don't want to keep the salt on, but we also need to paint this over the top, and we can't do that while this is wet. So I'll dry it real fast. All right, now you got to make sure that this part is dry, and I'm just going in little circles, and it will make a mess. You'll probably find salt on your table days later, but it's so cool looking. Okay, I'm just doing little circles to rub all that salt off as best as I can. Okay, now let's say that you dried it, you took the salt off, and you feel like you didn't get your paper dark enough. You can do a second layer. So you just do the whole process again. Do another layer of your dark blue. You can add the salt, dry it, and then rub it off. So it's okay to paint over the areas that have salt on them after you've removed the salt. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to splatter next. And the reason why I'm splattering next is because it'll be hard to avoid the trees once you have them on. So if we splattered last, we'd probably end up getting stars on trees. This I find is just the easiest way to do it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm looking for a medium brush. So this is just a 4 round. It is wet, and I have a little tiny puddle going in here, okay? The more water, obviously, the more transparent it will be. People have different ways of splattering. This is the way that I like. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to hit it on my finger and just go around the page. Now, if you want bigger splatters, grab a bigger brush. If you want smaller splatters, grab a smaller brush. Also, you're probably going to get splatters on your table, so be careful about that. Or splatters, I don't know, sometimes they end up in your hair or something, okay? All right, do as many or as little as you want. Just going splatter crazy here. Okay, now I'm gonna let that dry. Got a big old blob of water on there. Let me clean that up. Now, while that is drying, and this won't take super long to dry, but I do want it to dry. I want to show you how to make this tree shape. You can make this tree shape with a marker if you want. So it's up to you what you want to use. I am going to end up using paint, but I just want to show you. Okay, so for the tree shape, I'm going to just go straight up. Okay, I'm going to start with a branch, which is just going to, not a branch, the trunk, which is just going to be a line. And then it just comes down to like a triangle shape. See, it's like a really tall, skinny triangle shape. All of my leaves and branches are basically following a triangle, right? But if you notice, I have white space in between. Now, a lot of people have different ways they like to paint trees, so you do it how you want if you have a different way you like to. I just scribble. So let me just show you what that looks like. I'm always looking for like, what's the simplest way I could do this? And that's the way I do it. So I'm going to be grabbing a smaller brush. So I'll start with my line, right? And then I can thicken it up on the bottom. And then I'm basically staying within this triangle shape. I just kind of scribble. They're kind of like little X's, but I'm not really thinking of little X's as I'm doing them, or you can just dab your brush like this. Tap, tap, tap. Okay, so obviously the further down you go on the trunk, the wider out your little leaves and branches will be. Okay, really, I know it's easier said than done. Don't overthink it. I promise. It's just fine. Okay, now if you wanted to, you could even just like fill in a triangle shape and it would read as tree. I like to have some of that sky showing through, which is why I've got those little bits of white space, which will be the sky. Okay, I can kind of see some of my pencil lines. So what I'm gonna do, what I like to, if I've got a composition like this, what I prefer to do is actually start off by painting my lines for the trunks. Like, I'm not even filling them in yet. I'm just like, okay, I put a line here and I put a line here. I can see some of my pencil lines. This just helps to orient me, you know. If your paper's kind of warping like that, grab a binder clip. I think I'm gonna need one. Just so I can hold it down a little bit better. And I think it is helpful to turn your notebook or paper just so it's easier for yourself. And if you try to make a straight line and it's not straight, well, welcome to the club. We all do that. It'll be fine. So right here, I can't really see where I put stuff, so I'll just do my best to guess. I think there was probably one like here. I don't know. We'll go here. I see one over there. So now that I've kind of oriented myself, now I can go in and fill the space. So I'll go ahead and I just start on one end, thicken this up, and then I make my little leaf marks, branches. And I'm bringing mine down like all the way to the edge of the paper. And again, that is like a little bit more of a personal preference. Then I just move on to the next. You just keep repeating that process. And you can make these as wide or as narrow as you want your trees, okay? You can thicken up your trunk. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. I'm looking at this one here. It looks like I made them like a bit bigger, so why not? I will do that. Oh, okay, there we go. Which means, you know, everything else is going to come out a bit bigger, which is fine. I can do that. Just going to keep bringing it out. Also, it's helpful if you tilt, I noticed this for myself actually, if you tilt your journal so that the tree is straight for you, because right now I'm like painting it sideways, you know? So sometimes it is helpful to not do that. So maybe I'll do that for this. So that's a little more straight for me. And again, if doing this with black paint feels like you don't have as much control, you can grab a brush marker, like a brush pen. Whatever you're most comfortable using. Now you might notice that some of the white that we put down, you can still kind of see when you put the black paint over it, but I feel like it's not as noticeable, so it doesn't bother me. But I just wanted you to know so you don't think you did something wrong, because you didn't. This is just how this works here. You can kind of get in the zone of making these little brush strokes. It can be kind of fun. It's kind of crazy how these tiny little strokes that don't really seem that important can create this whole picture. I feel like there's a metaphor in there. I'll let you decide what that means. And again, if you have more time, you can totally spend more time on this and make it look more realistic. But maybe you don't have a lot of time. And doing it quickly, look, I'm just happy you're here. I'm really proud of you. You're spending some time creating something. Oh, I forgot to thicken up the branch, or I keep calling it a branch. It's not a branch, Christelle. It's a trunk. But you're spending time creating, which is kind of a big deal. I think it's a big deal. All right. And so we continue the process. And I think what I'll do is I will speed up the video just for the sake of time here. But I'm just doing the same thing over and over for these remaining trees. All right, there you have it. Once everything's dry, you can go ahead and take the tape off. I hope you had so much fun painting this with me. As you finish this painting, just notice the moment. You don't need the whole sky, just the part in front of you. And maybe that's enough, because that's how it works with God too. You don't have to understand everything all at once. You can start right where you are and build from there. And maybe the next time you find yourself looking up at the night sky, you'll remember you're not outside of it.